For this week's Preppin Data, we're looking at moving averages. So we've got a data set that we would have used in week 8, I think it was. So basically the first step here is to make sure that we wildcard union together all of those tables. So unioning those multiple data sets that are called mock_data dash and then the month number, all except for January, which doesn't have its own dash there. So we read that in and we get our data plus this file paths field, which we're going to clean up first of all so that we can find the month number. So if we just go to this file paths field and say clean and remove letters and then also remove punctuation, then we're left with just the numbers there. So that's what I've done in this step, and that gets me to this stage where I have these numbers apart from the empty one, which I can just double click into and put a number 1 so that I have my January number there as well. So that's what I've done there, and then made sure to change it to numeric and renamed it to be the month just for so I know what it's referring to. So now we need to create that trade order. So we're going to do a ranking here. So I did my ranking first of all from the month field, so create calculator field rank, and then we need to add in the ID there as well. So I'm just going to expand this visual editor here. So we first of all have it on the month. We need to change it to be in ascending order rather than descending order, and same with the ID. We need to add in the ID field and then change it to be ascending. Whoops, I've just changed it back. There we go. And we also need to make sure we're doing it for each industry. So we need to group by each industry. Okay, and then we only need the sector, purchase price, and trade order for the next bit. So now what we need to do, we need to create that parameter. So I created this parameter, called the rolling number of trades, made it numeric. I did a list and just listed a few different values there and chose 3 just so that I could check my output against what Carl has in the challenge. So then for the creating of that lower bound, so for each trade, how many trades do I want to look back on? Then I created this lower bound field called called lower bound and did the trade order minus that parameter that we just created, the rolling number of trades, and then I also added on 1 so that when I look at this, so I'm going to choose, for example, consumer services. I'm going to go to the detail view here, and then I can see, for example, if I'm looking at my oops, I wanted to look at the trade order field here, sorry. So go to the details, so look at consumer services, look at number 3, then I want that lower bound to be 1. So I want to look at the first trade, the second trade, and the third trade to make that rolling average, moving average, whatever you want to call it. So then we join this data set back onto itself, and we want the trade order of this step here, so I recolored them so that I could have it be a little bit easier. We want it to be greater than or equal to our lower bound that we just calculated. We want our sectors to be equal, of course, and then we want our trade order to actually be less than or equal to our trade order in the yellow. So that's kind of like our upper bound. And what that means, for example, for consumer services, that trade number 3, if I again go into the detail view there, so consumer services, trade number 3, then I get trade order 1, 2, and 3. And that's what I'm hoping to get. Trust me, when I was doing this myself, I did explode my data a little bit. I had about 3 million rows at one point, and I thought, that doesn't seem right. So make sure you have all 3 of these join clauses, and that'll work for you. So then it was a case of removing some fields I didn't need, renaming some fields. So for example, this trade order -1 that comes through, this is our true trade order that we want to look at. So I made sure that I knew which fields were the ones that I wanted to keep. So I've got my trade order, my sector, and my purchase price. And again, you want to make sure that all of these purchase prices are different for each of these rows. Otherwise, you're only keeping the original trade order, and you do an average of that, and it would just be the same. So make sure that these purchase prices are different. So then we come on to aggregating. So we're grouping on our trade order, grouping on our sector, and averaging that purchase price out. We're rounding this field up, so rounding it to 2 decimal places just so that it looks a bit neater in our output. And then comes this tricky bit with the last 100. So we want to do some more ranking. So ranking on the trade order, grouping by the sector, but in descending order this time. So we want the most recent one to be the number 1. So I've called this most to least recent, and then I'm just filtering that to be less than or equal to 100. And then basically what the challenge wants is to have that in the opposite order. So I'm ranking this field again, but in descending order so that I get 1 to 100 in the opposite order to this one. And then I just remove the unnecessary extra fields, and this is what you should be left with. So hopefully you enjoyed that challenge, and thank you very much for watching.